Okay, so let's start. Um, we decided to make a little discussion talk with Taras Polataiko, um, who's was a famous artist in Ukraine and a Ukrainian Canadian or Canadian Ukrainian artist. Um, it's very interesting moments that you have an experience. Uh, you have been studying in Moscow in 80s. You were in Canada, very famous artist. You presented Canada, or maybe not Canada, maybe it's a mistake, on São Paulo Biennial, and
I represented Ukraine.
you represent Ukraine. Okay, okay, good specification. So you have an experience uh, mostly in all these kind of periods and all this Russian,
Yeah,
Ukrainian, and Western um, life
yeah.
and
I
being
I I, I grew up in Ukraine, in Chernivtsi, where I am now. And when I was a teenager, I left and then went on to keep studying in Moscow. Uh, and then left in the 90s, like early, actually late 80s, and lived all my life in Canada and in different cities of Canada, a couple of years in New York. So, and now I'm back in Ukraine after Maidan, uh, which is 2014. So I do understand, yeah, all that.
yeah, it's a crucial moment that you have a background to speak about this all this in comparison and you have an experience to say it. You have a responsibility to say some moments concerning all these realms, Russian, Ukrainian, and Western, and it's important one, I think. So let's start our topic for today's for today will be is unconsciously uh, maybe Western world, Western intellectuals, uh, as we can um, I don't know see on Facebook on media how they maybe don't understand some maybe moments, some very subtle moments, and we decided to clarify these moments of very dangerous thing that means like reconciliation, um, Russian Ukrainians in cultural like moments. And what do you think about this? Uh,
Well,
Maybe
I don't even know where to begin, but it's a thing that is really painful because I'm in Ukraine now. We just just so people understand where we are. We're in the west of the country, which is like, thanks God, is has not been bombed yet. So it's probably one of the safest cities. But so we feel guilty towards places like Mariupol and Kharkiv, and to some extent Kiev and other cities that are being just brutalized, to terrorize all of us, like to make us want to break our will and to make us surrender. So that's to describe the situation and how it feels. We do get sirens every night and sometimes during the day, so we're not getting much sleep. Just to make clear, like, where we're like speaking from. Now the problems, like what I hear is happening in the West. Some, I don't know who, like curators are organizing, curating these phony discussions, inviting Russians as victims, Ukrainians as victims. It's this is probably the most painful from to observe, to see that it's happening now from where we are. First of all, who represents, like, I mean, like, it's probably, Ukraine is probably represented by people who are not living through this experience. That's one. Second one, it's not over. We're still in the process of being raped by the Nazi, like, fascist, brutal regime. It's too early to discuss anything. This is not over. Uh, Another thing is it seems to me that those attempts are so ill-informed, so opportunistic, and so superficial, and so, I mean, morally corrupt. It's so like just scratching the surface, because really what's happening is it's, I mean, I'm trying to be short, and it's difficult to make it short, but I'll try. It's like it's like putting like the victim of rape and the rapist on the same level in the process of the rape taking place. Like, we have like about like 120 children dead at this point, and it's mounting. They're shooting our cities, they're shooting like apartment buildings, they're shooting, like bombing hospitals. And from here, where, you know, the city which is in the west, that we probably feel as helpless. We cannot help Mariupol. It's probably similar how it looks from, I don't know, New York, when you like observe from your apartment what's happening live, and not really helping. And we cannot help Mariupol. We cannot even send like food or anything there. It's completely surrounded and brutalized. So yeah, so back to like what has to be done, and this is very important. It has, like, the Putin's regime, the Russian fascism, has to be seen as such. It's not like one person responsible. It has to be seen in the context of German fascism. What's happening now is, I don't know, I don't want to compare, it's probably 1943. I don't know where it's going to end. It's not a beginning, it's not, I don't know where it's the middle of the war, but it's not over. And the evil unleashed is, you know, in a European context, it should be seen as the previous instance of fascist brutality unleashed in Europe, and that is German fascism. So now, why am I? This is very important to understand, because I mean, it's, if you look at it contextually, historically, how it, the whole evolution of Russia occupying, brutalizing, declaring wars, hybrid wars, hot wars, country by country, Georgia, Moldova, you know, you name it, Crimea, then east of Ukraine, it just continued, and they were not getting any punishment, not any real punishment. After Crimea, there was like some like little sanctions that didn't really work. I mean, so it's very similar. It's kind of identical to like the appeasement of Hitler in 1930s, that, you know, first, like Europe, nobody wanted to go to war, yeah, because everybody was fed up with like a Great War, the First World War. So, you know, first, like Czechoslovakia was sacrificed, then he annexed Austria, then he occupied Poland, and then there was Churchill, who decided, okay, enough is enough, and he decided that Britain is not going to, you know, surrender, the famous quote. So in this case, it's us. It's Zelensky who made this, is going to be famous quote. I don't need, I need an ammunition, not a ride, when the Americans offered like to evacuate him. That's a very crucial moment. I think it's as important as Churchill's speech, that will never surrender speech, very well known one. So now, it should be seen as a fascist expression, like aggression. I mean the Putin's Russian regime, and it should be dealt with accordingly. And when I hope like we win this war. Nobody's really helping us in any serious way. We were alone in it, but I hope we win it. And when we do, there will have to be, first, economic weakening of Russia to the point that they'll need help, and they'll have to listen to the terms of the world. because right now what's happening, they're terrorizing the world with nuclear threat. The world is paralyzed, so they're terrorist fascist state. In a way, it's worse than Hitler, because Hitler was terrorizing when he didn't have like nuclear weapons. It was, it was more regional. But I mean, it's silly to make those comparisons. I shouldn't go too much into that. But it's a terrorist state that terrorizes the whole world now, and the world is paralyzed, in fear, and is can't do much. Well, it could, but yeah, again, nobody wants to go to war, which brings us back to 1930s, when Chamberlain, Munich conference, like sacrificing country after country, until the evil, the monster, the fascist monster, is getting stronger and stronger, and it has certain modus operandi. It's not all, it's like the bear is not going to become like a deer. The bear is a bear. It has a modus operandi. As it gets stronger, as it spills more blood, it's like a vampire. It just gets stronger. So it's not going to stop. Like the Russian television, they're discussing invading and dividing Europe live these days, like we see it. I mean, I have a satellite, like I switch it on once in a while. It's unbelievable. And the world is kind of turning a blind eye, and the intellectuals like are doing this panel discussions. Christ. And
Yeah, that's my next question.
let me just get a little bit
Yeah.
more, and so what has to be done? The economic stronger sanctions, make it maybe not bring it to economic collapse, because we don't need starvation, but get it economically to such a weakness that they will have to listen to the terms of the civilized world, and the first will have to be denuclearization of Russia, to make it impossible, never again, for Russia to be able to like hold the world hostage, be a terrorist, threaten the world with like nukes. And then there will have to be a process of serious programmatic, like a program of denazification, because that's another important thing to understand. It's not just Putin and good Russians. It is a Nazi fascist regime. And when it's going to be over, there's going to be a lot of people saying, oh, we didn't know. Oh, they didn't show it to us on TV. I've been watching Russian propaganda for 8 years now, since I moved back from Canada, and I realized that this is important. They were pumping people, they were preparing people for war for 8 years. It's, I some statistics I've seen is like 72% of people supporting this war in Russia, some over 80, I'm not sure, but it's, it's serious. And for the well known now never again to happen, it'll have to be seriously denazified, kind of, there would have to be like a cultural cancel Russia. I like that idea. Like it happened in sports, like they're barred from like competition. So if sports people understand the necessity of doing this, isolating fascist, representatives of fascist culture society, what's going on with cultural people, like, cultural curators and professionals? I mean, those are the ones who are like supposed to be first understanding this, but somehow I suspect that what's happening with them is similar to what's been happening with Germany until very recently, when Germany was deluding itself that it's just economy, that the German money does not go to pay for like Russians killing Ukrainian children, buying their gas, cheap gas. So it's just so corrupt. It's unbelievable, and it leads us. I'd like to discuss that, to the crisis of European humanism.
Yeah, exactly. It's next question, next point. We are sitting in Ukraine and being in Ukraine. We can see. For example, on Facebook and Twitter, you can see all these discussions concerning good Russians or bad Russians. This thing is very dangerous, I think. And
Mm.
but maybe this moment we should clarify more deliberately for Westerns also, yeah, for Western I don't know, society, yeah, to clarify this
Mm.
moment of responsibility. Because if you are talking about Germany, 30s, Nazi, we don't want to punish, for example, Thomas Mann or Theodor Adorno. We don't have this sword and just to equalize responsibility of Thomas Mann or Nazi, because he was against Nazi. But in
Right.
this moment, but yeah, have
I
a
agree. I
very
think I
interesting
get it.
point.
I get a drift. I think, yeah, absolutely. I agree. It's not the wholesale punishment. There would have to be like a war tribunal first. And then when after denuclearization, that's very key issue, only after denuclearization, because it's not possible while they still have the nuke and can threaten the world. So only after economic sort of weakening, denuclearization, there will have to be like a denazification problem and process, clearly juridically described process. There was a precedent, just a screening process, just like clear, very simple answers, like to every citizen of like Russian Federation. So what was your reaction to annexation of Crimea? Like how much
Mhm.
how much did you collaborate with the regime? What exactly was your degree of involvement? How much money did you get from the criminal regime? It is already established, like legally, that the regime is responsible for war crimes. The Congress voted Putin as like war criminals. These are not philosophical things. These are juridical by now, and they're going to get stronger. So, yes, not everybody, but it has to be determined through the very thorough process of de-Russianization, similar to what was done in Germany after 1945, where it took 10 years. And your degree of responsibility was developed by US government, and it was very clear. Like you were allocated like a degree of responsibility. Some people really didn't have any responsibility. Some people, I mean, war criminals, they were giving a death sentence. Some went to jail. Some were not allowed to have like state positions. Some people were like deprived of voting, who were involved with the regime for 10 years. There was like various degrees, but it was like thoroughly established. It was not like philosophical anything. It was done by the U.S. administration and British administration. So similar, and the importance for it. Now it brings, as you say, I think you mentioned like colonialism.
Mhm.
It's very deep. Within like this chauvinistic, fascistic, aggressive thing is very deeply rooted within the Russian culture. So that it has to be uprooted, because it seems to be happening time and time and time again. Like last instance was like Soviet. I mean, it just has like different incarnation, like Tsarism, then Soviet. Now it's like Russian fascism, but the the bottom line is the same. It's a lot. There's no truth. Everything is kind of fake. There's this thing called Potemkin villages, like for people who are like more familiar with Russian culture. It's very important. It's like a kind of fake backdrop to make it look like something else, or make it look like something that doesn't really exist. So corruption is very deeply rooted. It was always there for centuries. And this kind of make believe thing, like maskirovka, like tell people not what that means, maskirovka.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
like it's like to trick the world to believe that it's great, that it's strong, and now we totally deserve, like as Ukrainians, we called that bluff, and with a small nation and small army, we're showing what it's really worth, that grandeur. I mean, we're paying like with heavy price for it, but we're
Mhm.
showing to the world what it really is. It exists on selling fear. Like what for Russian culture, what's important is it's like this inferiority complex that is there for since Peter the Great, who started like civilizing this faraway kind of kingdom that nobody really knew about. So he kind of started this process of Europeanization, and since there they were like playing kind of like a catch-up game with European civilization and developed this like inferiority complex and the lack of democracy, which was never there, allowed for this anger. I have to explain this how it works. Like if in a democratic society with like functioning economy, it kind of forces people to be like nice, polite, because you're doing business with people. You're saying hello, thank you. It's. I'm not even talking about like culture and the whole whole canon of of Western culture. In Russia, it's complete. It's ongoing unhappiness because it's corrupt. It's always been corrupt. It's like disrespect to each other. So it creates like anger and unhappiness. And what the Russian regimes, one after another, from Tsarist to Soviet to now this fascist Putin one, they're channeling it to the outside, and that's why it's so aggressive all the time. It's just this inability to create, to establish democracy and be happy, just like living your happy, democratic, good, normal life creates anger that is like kind of skillfully channeled by propaganda towards the West. It's kind of it cannot exist without external enemy. Yeah. So the reason I'm kind of like going on and on and on about this, it sits really deep, and it has to be deconstructed, uprooted, decolonized. Like colonial studies will change after this, I believe. I mean, post-colonial studies, this colonial, chauvinistic, fascistic thing will have to be dealt with like on a very deep level. I mean, I'm talking for us, intellectuals, like for because you asked me to do this so we can explain to like Western intellectuals who are like far away from this, the whole scope, the whole importance of what has to be done, and again the purpose, the necessity of it. So this like hydra of ugly, aggressive fascism will never kind of regroup and resurface again, and will terrorize the world again. So and the problem sits so deep culturally within the Russian culture itself that it has to be dealt with the same seriousness as Nazi Germany was dealt with in 1940s and 1950s.
Yes, thank you for these thoughts. I would like to, one question for me is that is not so clear. I would say, coming back to the last point concerning this denazification and after the war, good, bad Russians, all these things. I would like to just to specify one moment, because it's not clear. I think again for Westerns, maybe it's not my on behalf of Westerns. I couldn't say, of course, but it's my hypothesis. Like I don't know. I guess. The question is, why do we need? Why do you insist on this clarification? Who is bad? Who is good Russian? Who were the protesters? Who was against regime? Who was not? Only after or during the denazification period after the war.
Well,
because
why
we can't do it right now, for example?
Well, no, I think I agree. Yeah, good. Did you finish?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I believe what's necessary now is just like complete isolation. The way it was done in soccer, football. Like you're until you're not invited to any international tournaments. So until it remains fascist, and it's killing people and it's doing war crime, that system, that regime, its participants and enablers, cultural, whatever, economical, like oligarchs, like cultural workers, like that are who knows, maybe some of them are not supporting it, but we are not really hearing too many intellectual voices from Russia speaking up against it. Like, I mean, I don't know of any artists like speaking up. Like, I mean, where are they? Like, I don't know. So I'm not a judge. I'm not a procurator. Like, I don't know, and I'm not a psychoanalyst. And so that's what I'm saying. Like, for now, there has to be Council Russia program, like just isolation. If you want to reap the benefits of the Western civilization that your country is ruining and then threatening and terrorizing, you have to go through this to answer certain questions and to prove your innocence. So I mean, what's happening now is like a lot of Russians are kind of like sneaking their way out through Belarus and kind of like making it look like they're like lost their passports and kind of infiltrating the West like through the Polish border. And it's very dangerous because I don't know how many like FSB agents and other, terrorists will infiltrate Europe through that, like pretending they're of course like innocent. I mean, after Novichok poisonings in London, like, does Europe need more, more of that? So there has to be very thorough screening. Yeah, right now, but right now it's very difficult because they're pretending to be like Ukrainian refugees. Like there's a lot of like Russian-speaking Ukrainians. So for Polish border guards, they're unprepared. Ukrainians can tell Russian accent. Polish bodyguards, border guards, like they can. So, and it's another problem that exists. I mean, from the Western point of view. So yeah, there has to be like an isolation. And the purpose of that is like, again, not to allow. I mean, again, imagine Germany, 1940s, like. There's a lot of people saying, attempting to say, oh, we didn't know. Like, oh, it was like one man. It was one man. Like, that's why like Nuremberg process was important. Like, I believe like US government came up with this idea. Like it was a battle for the minds of the Germans. It was a way to televise it. Nuremberg trial, and to expose the whole thing, the whole scope of crimes and the whole inner workings and the whole mentality of top Nazis. Something like this will have to be done, but it has to start now.
Yeah,
and we cannot do it. We're being bombed. People are dying here. Ukrainians cannot do it. What Ukrainians can do now is like to die fighting, because nobody's really helping us, and we're up against like the army that is like 8 or 9 times like larger as us. Like we're not going to surrender. We're gonna die fighting. We're Sparta of the world right now. But like the West has do its part, because otherwise, like we're facing the crisis of Western humanity.
And why do you think Westerns, maybe in Europe, in the United States, in Canada, I don't know, why even those who are who support Ukrainians, support all these things that you told, why? What reason is just they didn't understand some these aspects that you are talking about now? What is wrong? What is the reason of?
I'll tell you what I think is wrong, Sasha. I think it's enabling narrative. I think some people are just being like plain opportunistic. There's a crisis. There's like money to government money, whatever, like foundation money to be quickly used, and it's like the first thing. Oh, let's make peace. We can get a grant. It's just kind of morally so corrupt. There's probably that. Then there's probably just like ignorance, a kind of lack of knowledge of like the whole the depth of the problem you're trying to deal with. There's this like condescending, it's almost kind of bordering racism of Western kind of looking down on Eastern Europe and kind of looking at all these like Slavs as generic, kind of generally poorer and kind of less developed. It's this kind of, there's certain racism to it, I think. And it's, the other thing is like, hypocrisy. It's, it's been a month that the world is watching on televisions, like, yeah, Ukrainian children being killed, and and allowing itself to like do this condescending kind of telling us how we should properly, how we should properly uh, feel towards the Russians. I've heard things like that. Well, I'll be specific. I at the very beginning of the war. By the way, I wasn't here. I was in Vienna. I came back purposefully because I knew I couldn't, I couldn't live with myself if I would try to sit it out somewhere else. It would just kind of not, anyway. Yeah, and few days into the war, I got an invitation from like a Polish curator friend to go to some fancy residency. Like it was like Oslo, Vienna, Paris, like Marseille. It was like wow. I I I said like, well, first of all, I'm not going. It wasn't the reason. Like I was already in Vienna. It's not. I mean, I didn't have to come back to Ukraine like right, under bombardment to flee. But then, well, she still sent this kind of text to me, description, and I couldn't believe it. It said like for Russian and Ukrainian artists, and it's like what? Like how? I mean, it's like people don't understand the amount of hatred towards us like created on Russian television in propaganda, how it pumped Russian society. And a lot of Ukrainians know it. It's like, yeah, those television channels are available. We know it. We know how much of this kind of venom was there on Russian TV for all these years. So knowing that, don't I don't want to share, I don't want to be in the room with a Russian personally until those very necessary steps will be taken. And like with the evil, the criminal, the war crimes, the everything, the violence, the rape will be dealt with properly, then the dialogue will maybe be possible. But it's not a time yet, and it's not going to come any soon. And that's why, like, I'm saying those steps are very important. We want justice. It's like you cannot expect the victim to make peace with a rapist in the process of the rape, and not even after, before the justice took place, and the criminal, the rapist, had punishment, deserved punishment. It just does not make sense. And I think it's the first time I'm putting it in the words, like we're being bombarded here, and we're like fundraising and helping like refugees, and so I'm sorry, like it's the first time I'm trying to put this into words, this kind of like strong feelings that we have. So it doesn't come very eloquently right away, but yeah, I think it's kind of, it's something like that. It's justice is very important. You cannot expect we're all being traumatized right now. I mean, yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, and one more thing that I forgot. I also think that it's like, on the part of people who are like, organizing it in the West, sitting in their comfortable offices, besides kind of hypocrisy and being ill-informed, being ignorant, being probably racist, kind kind of looking at us as kind of like second-class Europeans or something like that. And so it seems to be the same. They're over there. You know, we have this wall. We're protected by NATO. Yeah, as long as, you know, as long as we don't have to, as long as our comfort is not disturbed, let them die, whatever. Like, you know, 40 million. You know, they're the same. Whatever, Russians, Ukrainians, whatever. Let's just help them make peace, so we don't have to deal with it. Wow, not gonna happen that easy, unfortunately. So, yeah, it's kind of, I think it's kind of like finding some shortcut, like enabling narrative not to do anything. It's got a very cowardly and hypocritical position. It's better not to do anything than do those phony kind of, you know, pathetic gestures that are being done now. Yeah, because it's again, I want to emphasize that the scale of tragedy, I mean, is, well, it's not a World War III yet, but I mean, some people say it's a beginning. Because the Russians are not gonna, I mean, if Ukraine falls, like, they're not gonna stop. They're gonna be, you know, they'll have to continue. Like, Putin is open about it. They're open. They want to go to Berlin again. It's a slogan they have. Like, we can repeat it. They can, like, conquer Berlin, return all those things. It's serious. They've been serious about it for 8 years. You know. So yeah. So yeah. I think I said enough.
Yeah. Let's say maybe the last moment, last question for you to you. Yeah. How could we just finish it? And do you believe in a bloody palace cope or something like that? How do you believe in it? How do you think what will be in next future months and all this? Do you believe in this bloody telescope or
What do you mean? I don't know that term. Bloody telescope?
bloody palace cope? I mean, it's killing Putin by his
Palace coup, bloody Palace coup. Well, I wish it happens, and that would be the easiest way out of it. Like, wow, it's, you know, it's anyone's guess. That you know, the whole world will just go like, whoo. Yeah, but who knows? Like, nobody knows. I sure hope so, because I mean, he makes, like, most of the people suffer, even in Russia. It's this, like, maniacal, aggressive, full of hatred, like, this ideology that he involved the whole nation into. Well, mind you, like, again, it's dangerous to separate he from them. He's like flesh and blood of Russian people and Russian culture. It was always there, this imperial, chauvinistic, condescending kind of, especially towards Ukraine, because Ukraine was there, Kiev was there like 500 years, if I'm not mistaken, before Moscow, and they hate that. So, I mean, but I don't want to get into this identity politics, because it's becoming regional all of a sudden, and nobody cares. But it's important for Russians to have that, you know, this, to feed that inferiority complex with aggression and conquest, and yeah. So, yeah, it happened in Russian culture before a few times, so I sure hope it happens again. But I mean, once you brought up this, like, kind of internal, again, politically corrupt, like coup d'etats, like political corruption, because the system doesn't work. So it has to be kind of refreshed, reloaded, whatever was the Obama term, relaunch, whatever computer term. Yeah, through killing the czar. I sure hope so. But it would be, it's, you know, the world's been living this in terror. Like people write to me from Canada and States, and they say people are really paralyzed of, in fear. Like my colleagues from Canada say they wake up at night and they like turn the television on because they're worried about the nuclear war. And it's the whole uh, security architecture will have to be rethought and reconstructed because obviously it failed. That's one thing. But then it will have to be like a humanitarian, but not just humanitarian, like legal effort, like juridical effort to denazify this society. So yeah, so well, I'll explain what I mean exactly. Like, okay, so the Soviet Union was threatening the world for like 50 years or more. Cold War, I mean, it was the same threat of nuclear. Like the Russians learn very well how to sell fear, and Putin is excellent in this. It's here we know it's bluff, because back to like Potemkin villages, so people can Google it. Potemkin villages. It's very important to understand Russian culture. It's this kind of projecting fear. It's kind of, well, we might have this like inferiority complex towards the West, like we can't make anything except for like sell, oil, but at least they'll be afraid of us because we can get drunk or whatever, or out of control, and we have that nuclear button. So talk to us. Yeah, and one thing, it's hard to be here now, but I'm happy that I'm here now and I'm part of that Ukrainian effort to call that bluff. Because scary Russian army, well, we're dealing with it. So again, another important point, kind of jumping, sorry, the terror, the rule by terror. It was always there from like czars, like through commissars and Soviet Union to now like fascism. It's ruled by fear and by terror, by threat. Like when nothing is really real, like, oh, the way it happened, like, God, I'm really, really getting choppy because I'm trying to squeeze as much as I can into it, but okay, like I'll try to relax. What happened, I believe, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, it was, well, economically, they aggrandized themselves, so they started projecting so much aggressive power that they couldn't handle it anymore. Well, thanks for like Western oil embargo. That was very important. If it happened now, it will kind of like shorten our suffering. That is very important. Like, cut them off. At least they won't last long. They'll go into default, and it'll be over. It'll be a faster way out of it for the whole world, and especially for us. So that terror thing is very important there. From the very beginning, when I don't want to go back like 800 years ago, like how this Russian power construction kind of formed, like in that kind of feeling not happy. Like they had to go to the Khans, to the Golden Horde, and kiss their feet, literally, like the Russian czars, like when they were like vassals to them, and then they would like return, and that's like humiliating, and they would just like repeat doing it to their own people. And that's kind of, I really recommend like reading, God, remind me, Custine, Marquis, Sasha, you know this, Astolphe de Custine, Russia in 1839.
Yeah.
It's a very good book to understand Russia. Astolphe de Custine went to Russia in 1830s. He was a monarchist, French monarchist, aristocrat. He wanted to use Russia as a good example for like a monarchy restoration in France. But and he spent like, I believe, a year or more there, and what he saw like just completely changed it for him, like this. And it turned out to be like a pretty critical book, and he saw like to the essence. He saw the essence of it. and the book was banned in Russia for 150 years. It was censored. Like it was like the longest censored text in Russia, and it just like tells you, how much they don't like it. So I mean, because he really saw the essence. Yeah. So yeah, back to rule by terror. When oh yeah, what happened? Yeah, Soviet Union, okay, like falls apart, and everybody all of a sudden is getting, of course, euphoric, because like all this like fear of nuclear threat is gone, and everybody just kind of, wow, like we won, and be like, I mean, being the West, and let's be magnanimous, let's help them, and everybody was really super euphoric and nice to the Russians, and nobody really bothered, like kind of like thinking, like looking deeper into it, and it just allow it to kind of regroup and resurface, and here we go again. We're getting the same fascistic, aggressive thing in a much uglier form, I think, now. So yeah, but what happened after Soviet Union collapse in Russia in the 90s? Like the intellectuals there, they started reading, postmodern intellectual texts, Western. So I would say, and yeah, and they were happy to discover that like there's no truth. I mean, like simulation by like Jean Baudrillard in texts like this. So what happened is like they evolved it like really well. So like what it is, I mean, another aspect of looking at Russian culture and politics and power system, vertical and everything, and the whole bluffing and faking and tricking and maskirovka and all that is like Jean Baudrillard combined with KGB and combined with like nuclear threat. That I think is kind of a good assumption. I mean, synopsis, whatever.
Oh,
And
great combination, of course. Yeah, nuclear Baudrillard propaganda.
yeah, with KGB
Cocktail.
methodology.
It's a fucking cocktail.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And that's why it has to that's why it has to be like very seriously dealt with, like decolonized on, seriously, through like post decolonial analysis intellectually. The Western shouldn't allow to be kind of like bluffed by like Swan Lake by Tchaikovsky, whatever. Like Tchaikovsky is Ukrainian anyway.
And Prokofiev too, as well.
Yeah. I mean, and the so-called Russian avant-garde is, I mean, there's not very much Russian in the Russian avant-garde. It's Ukraine. Yeah. So, and that's why Russia hates Ukraine so much, because I mean, like even the name Kiev Rus, Russia wasn't even there. Like Moscow wasn't even there when the name, like they appropriated the name when was like Catherine the Great, who, I mean, our people from Kiev like went there because they didn't have any universities. So people from Kiev, like after Karl the 12th, like the Swedish king, lost this battle, Poltava battle, there were like Ukrainians and Swedes like who were fighting Peter the First. Like, so we lost that battle, and that kind of marks the beginning of like Europeans like kind of paying serious attention to, ooh, that's so over there, what is that? Yeah. So and that's kind of like becoming the beginning of this kind of grandiosity, like out there on the swamps. And that's, yeah, and so the Kiev there, they conquered, like colonized us through that, like and the intellectuals from Kiev, from Mohila Academy, like there was no universities in Russia at that time, I don't think. Or I might be wrong, but I don't think they were. So they went there and they kind of developed like this idea of colonial, I mean, imperial idea, and the idea of like, it was Muscovy before, Moscow Duchy or something. I mean, you go to Venice, you go to like Palazzo Doji, and you see this map. It's like somewhere there, and it's not called Russia. So Rus is Kiev, So they appropriate that name, and they appropriate this whole history. It kind of adds like the Ukrainian history adds like 500 years to Russian history. So that's why they're so maniacal about killing children here.
That's true. Yeah. And let's summarize. Maybe let's can you make this just sum up and just to make such a final message to maybe to people who we are talking to this evening as a discussion night, just like a last message for just summarizing all things that you told before. I mean, just maybe in 1-2 sentences to understand.
I think maybe the most important thing is to realize the seriousness of Russian fascism, and you know, not to take it lightly, and to make sure that the only proper way, the framework, you know, analyzing it is that of 1945, when German fascism had to be dealt with and addressed, like partly through like denazification and Nuremberg trial. It has to be exposed for what it is, because again, I want to repeat it because I think it's important to understand. It's like kind of like a copy of German fascism, but it's kind of like made in China copy of German fascism because it's corrupt. So but really the proper framework and context to analyze it is German fascism, and it has to be just everything kind of, you know, starts making sense then, and it's easy. Just for people who want to, you know, go like what, just look what happened chronologically after, say, beginning with annexation of Transnistria from Moldova. It happened first, I think. Then there was like annexation, war in Georgia, and annexation in 2008. An annexation like of part of Georgia, and then there was like annexation of Crimea. There was like annexation of Donbass from Ukraine, and
but the same scenarios. So this
yeah, I'm just explaining to people who might go like, "What is he talking about?" No, we don't think of Russians as like. Well, think about it, and if you think if you're shocked right now by what I'm saying, just trace it chronologically. Trace what led to like Second World War, and like Hitler's annexations and like little kind of conquests, and how like the West was sacrificing country after country and like trying to turn a blind eye and to appeal that aggressive appetite. The same thing. Just different geographical names.
Yeah, because the first reaction by Westerns, by Britain, was not so strong, and that's why he continued. And this is the same way, the same.
Absolutely, it's absolutely. It's the exploitation of kind of weakness. I mean, Hitler knew you know, what he had was this like deadly animal instinct in the beginning, anyway, until he lost it. Thanks God.
He felt the fear.
It's selling fear. It's threatening people. It's Putin is selling fear. Russia is selling fear. It's projecting fear for, you know, historically in the Soviet Union. It's the same. Was the same. So yeah, Hitler did the same because again, like people were like still traumatized. Like, I mean, in Europe, like by the First World War, because like, you know, how horrible it was, and Hitler knew it. You know, so I mean, democracies people don't want to go to war because it's, you know, it's not a thing people happy, more or less, people, democratic societies like wanna do. So it's dictatorship. Yeah, dictatorships do go to wars. So again, if you have all of a sudden you realize like, ooh, like we didn't realize like Hitler would be doing that, or now he's doing it, but he promises us to stop there. So let's just give him like Czechoslovakia. It's like a country, ooh, over there. It's kind of like far away. Yeah, nobody felt good about it, you know, morally. But yeah, at least we don't have to go to war. That's what's happening now. So, I mean, if we fall here, well, what's going to happen? Like, our army is like, we're proud, it's very good.
Yeah, Poland, Baltic countries will be
Yeah,
the next.
we're holding the ground. If they manage to behead our government, I mean, democratically elected government of Ukraine, it'll be a chaos here. It'll be probably like insurgency for years. I don't know. I don't want to think about it. It's horrible. But eventually they'll get a hold of arms and ammunitions and people and like all these like pretty well trained soldiers that we have. And this is like just how much stronger he would become. I'm not bullshitting when I'm saying vampire. You know, this is real. They'll just get like twice as strong or more, and you know, pretty soon they'll move further west. And there's, I mean, maybe you can Google, I mean, and place somewhere as a link so people see how I saw it. I couldn't believe it. Like the Russians like had this TV screen on, it's like it went live on TV, and they were like discussing the military strategy of like at Sweden, Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, and Poland at the same time, like paralyzing their like electronic defenses or something, landing in Sweden on the Gotland, I believe, island, and to connect Kalini to cut the corridor to Königsberg, Kaliningrad. You know, they're discussing it on TV. What else is there needed for the world to take it seriously? And yeah, one other thing I want to say is like this cowardice, this like again back to the true high values, like yeah, human life, yeah, great. I mean, and the crisis of Western humanism that I think after this war it'll have to be discussed, because like right now it's like hard to say, but it seems like maybe the highest value of Western civilization, like de facto, is actually comfort. And that's dangerous because, I mean, democracy is a beautiful thing. It started like in, you know, back in Athens, back in ancient Greece, when people realized that like, well, this dude, we don't like him, he's telling us what to do. It was like first time people come up with this beautiful idea that we don't have to listen to him, take his orders. Like they kicked him out, sat down and decided we can make a collective decisions, we can vote. And that led to development of this like wonderful culture that we're all, you know, results of. So, but they were like brave and they were never like, you know, cowards about defending it too. And that part is kind of weak now. So
Yeah.
we're fine if we're really like, yeah, I know it's loud words, but why we're bleeding. I can say it. We're like little Sparta, like holding the gate of this kind of barbaric gates that are like pushing towards the West. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say even maybe the last words from my side. Maybe people don't understand, don't realize this global conjunction. I don't know, global connection of democracy, global economy, global world. But the more distant you are from the front of the war, the more hardly you can feel it like we feel, or for example, like people in Mariupol feel, or in Kiev, because if you are on this distance, you cannot you can only imagine it. You cannot feel it realistically. You cannot feel it. And that's a problem, because we know about this global economy, global world, but the war, future war that you are talking about now, people couldn't understand it, that it is like next door, next step, and to feel this conjunction, to feel this global conjunction, I think it's one of the important thing, and maybe one of the important mistakes that Western people do right now. Don't realize the real danger.
It's real. It's like you know, the other. It's like otherization of suffering.
Yeah.
It's not you, it's the other. And it, yeah.
Okay. let's finish today, and maybe we'll continue, but maybe not. But I'm very grateful and to you, and thank you so much for this emotional discussion, and your speech. So yeah, we end up
Yeah, it's probably too emotional, and it's probably not going to be as emotional, you know, when it's over, but that's the way it is now. That's like I've been very honest, and I hope I didn't, you know, overstate too much, because at this point it really, you know, there's not much time to kind of philosophize and conceptualize. It's we're actually not sleeping a lot. We're fundraising, and kind of we're basically, me and my girlfriend, I think that maybe that's important to say, like the context of the where these thoughts are coming from. We're not sleeping very much, maybe some days. If we get like 5 hours of sleep in this, like last month, we're lucky. And we're like 24/7, we're fundraising. We're first, we helped like the refugees locally, whatever we could. We gave like we donated blood, and now because like my girlfriend's like two brothers of my girlfriend's and father, they're actually fighting. They're defending Kiev. They're volunteers. They're one of many civilian volunteers, like who
yeah,
realize
that's
like
yeah,
our army is too small, and they just volunteered. And with horror, like when I saw those pictures, like we all saw it, like they don't have any protective gear. They just got guns. So we were like, for last month we were like went like you know, over the clock, like fundraising and getting stuff civilian defense of Kiev needs. And it's not available in Ukraine. It was like sold out like within the first couple of days of war. So now we have to like source it like in like London and Italy and States. And like I got ordered something from Alaska today. So yeah, so that's how we live now.
yeah, and that maybe will be helpful to say people who are just watching us now, maybe they want if they want to donate or to help someone somehow, they could text you maybe directly in Facebook
Yeah,
Messenger.
if
And
you want, if you want to help, you can contact me on Facebook and Messenger privately. I'm very reluctant to post any private information, because like the Russians are hacking, you know, so trolls and whatever bots. So yeah, write to me privately in Messenger, and I'll give you like our, you know, financial info, so you can,
okay,
if you
okay,
want, you can donate towards the defense of Ukraine and like refugees.
okay. Thank you, Taras, and
Hmm?
yeah, and bye bye.
Yeah. Okay. Bye. Thank you.
But we are just staying here. Okay, I'm just
Yeah. Yeah.
stopping
We're
recording
staying
and
put, doing our part. Yeah.
yeah, continue some words.
Yeah.
Sorry.